Hey everyone, just a quick sound check. Test one, two. Can you hear me? Let us know in the chat. Thor, check one,
Hello.
two.
Check one, two, 1, 2.
Two.
At work at the moment, I'm working on implementing a microphone like voice to text search. So the amount of times at work I'm sort of sitting there going testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
Do you ever revert to like another way to like check? Because you're tired of saying check one, two, three.
No, actually, because even just having a number, like I'm fighting latency at the moment from between it when it starts recording and how much it captures. So actually having the numbers like increasing, it's like a good way of knowing how much of your text kind of captured.
Ah, nice. All right, it sounds like everyone can hear us all right. Let's kick it off. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Office Hours. I'm super excited to have our guest today, Thorsten Sideboard. Welcome,
Hey, thanks for having
Thorsten.
us. Thank you.
I believe some of you probably already know of Thorsten, or you may be first timers. Thorsten has been in the music industry and world of electronic music, algorithmic music for 3+ decades, 4 decades, something like that. Um, Incredible guy. I'm so excited. A personal friend of mine. I'm super excited to have him here. Thorsten, welcome to Office Hours.
Thanks so much. Yeah, very excited to be here and chatting. Yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
So before we get into maybe more of the most topical stuff and the kind of what we've got coming up in the next month, I want to wind back the clock a little bit because there's some past history that I'm not aware of. Like, I know that you obviously started, you're a Glaswegian boy, you got mates there. You spent time in the UK. You lived with Leafcutter John, who many folks here are probably familiar with John, legendary Max user. But yeah, I'm like curious, like, what was your path into this world of sound that we all operate in? I'm curious, like, how that began.
Yeah, yeah. So from Glasgow, grew up in Glasgow. I turned 16 in 1990, and 1990 in Glasgow was the Europeans. It was Glasgow was termed the European City of Culture. So the clubs were open till like 5:30 in the morning. I had been,
Nice.
yeah, yeah, and there were some legendary clubs in Glasgow at that time. Tin Pan Alley and a sub club. Tin Pan Alley was the first one I went to, and it was DJs called Boydie and Scott, and it was all like. Uh, there was like a lot of acid house. Upstairs was like a lot of hip hop and like sort of like LL Cool J and such as well. But the downstairs was like I heard LFO, Beltram. There's a lot of like
Oh,
Belgian Hoover stuff going on then as well. A lot of Detroit techno. There's a lot of sort of UK stuff happening as well. So this big melting pot of sound kind of thing. And there's a lot of like underground raves and stuff we'd go to. Like just rave was just exploding like from 1989, 1990. So that was how I first kind of got into like just
oh
music.
yeah.
And I remember hearing at the time how that was, like it was somehow it was political that this was happening. At the time, I was like, but we're just going out to clubs. I don't understand why this is political. But of course, for like the UK government, you've got like thousands of kids just ignoring the police, heading out into the countryside and just playing music all night and like just like now. Fuck you to like the authorities kind of things. Like in retrospect, like, oh, of course, this is like a big sort of political movement of just anarchy and like just freedom and just like very much our generation's like punk rock kind of thing. It was just like just all going off kind of thing. So got into sort of DJing and such early 90s. Me and a friend sort of chipped in money and got kind of turntables together, a set of Technics. Um, but I moved out to San Francisco in 96. And funnily enough, I was doing like kind of computers back in Glasgow. I've been doing like IT, just like Windows desktop stuff in the early 90s. Moved out to SF, ostensibly to get away from doing computers. I thought I was just going to do music and art full time. Like moving out to San Francisco in 96, the whole dot-com thing was blowing off.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
My first job was down at Stanford Research Institute. And that was where I discovered Unix and kind of got really into sort of like Linux was just kind of starting off then. So this was actually how I got into like doing much more computer programming and such and got into like operating systems. And around that time, also going out in San Francisco, like by the later 90s, by this point, you had a lot of Tiger Beat 6 was just kind of blowing up. So like Kid
Yep.
606, Kit Clayton's Orthlong Musework was doing a lot of stuff. So there was like Dalgleish OST, like doing like Max MSP then. You had like Gold Chains, which I think was also using Max MSP. He was like on Orthlong Musework. You had Twerk as well, who was like building a lot of Max patches for, he was building them for like OST Dalgleish. So you used to all this like DSP stuff kind of going on was like my time in San Francisco in the late 90s.
Nice.
And it was all very punk rock shows as well. It was like someone up on stage with a laptop, but totally getting into it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so that like, and then from there, dot-com crash happened and I moved, I had to go back to Europe. So rather than go back to Glasgow, I moved to London at that point.
Yep.
I ended up at a place called State 51, which is where I met Alex McLean, who's the originator of like tidal cycles, although that never came till later. At the time he was using Perl scripts and like writing sort of like live code. So this was the time when that sort of live
Nice.
coding movement was just kind of kicking off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then around that time as well, like I think the first year I was living in Camden when I got there. But when did I move to 2002? I moved to Hackney by then. And that was when I moved in with Leafcutter John. And like
Nice.
just kind of knew of him through other people, I think.
Yeah,
So I didn't
yeah.
know when I moved in, but we became like really good friends. And then he got to know Alex McLean through my work, and there's another buddy of mine that was putting on gigs at the time. So we had a London at that point in the 2000s was just like everyone was putting on shows, and there was one venue called the Foundry, which was a pub. It was
Yeah, I
an
heard
old,
of it. I think they
yeah.
might have played there actually,
Oh
like
yeah.
in the
It had like a
2000s. Yeah.
basement area, which was like an old bank kind of thing. It had like this
Yeah.
metallic wheel that could turn and like
Yes, yes.
it was off financed by Bill Drummond from the KLF. And they had like a big sign when you went in. It was like one of Bill Drummond's like famous textual pieces. It's like I think it started off, it says, "So you think you can fucking do better?" And it was basically go if you want to put on a night here, come and speak to the bar staff. So very open DIY punk kind of thing. If you've got something to put on, come and do it here. And so I met a number of people through there, and we were all putting on different nights there. I was like putting on sort of DJ nights, and I had like Leafcutter John come through and play. Um,
Nice.
so at that point, like I'd started working with Ableton by that point, so like doing a lot of music. But always inspired, like living with Leafcutter John, he was always like building, he'd spend months like building his own like Max
Yeah.
MSP systems. And I remember things like I was standing up on a chair holding like 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 he was doing like a spring reverb. So it was like a big sort of spring that I was holding for him while he'd have like a microphone on one end. And between him and Alex McLean at work writing all these software, like his own software for live code performances, and I'd go to all these gigs. The place we worked, State 51, was like a warehouse space in the East End of London. So we were putting on like there was a thing called Placard, which had started in France, and it was these headphone listening festivals. Um, so we did three of them over the years, like from 2002 to 2006 or seven. So all these different influences, but at that point I was still mostly working with Ableton Live. Like I was like
Okay.
putting together sort of music and I was doing a lot of live shows. Like I was running the label High Point Low Life at that point. And a lot of the artists hadn't really they'd been doing production in the room kind of thing, but not so much for like doing live shows. So there was two artists, Recon and Fisk Industries, that I would end up sort of playing live with. Like I would get like samples from them and like we'd basically have like our Ableton synced up and like doing the headphone festivals. And we played out in Barcelona, like off.
Nice.
We'd go out for like Sonar, but there'd be like other off Sonar events that we'd sort of like perform for. But for coming back to the algorithmic part, like I'd been working State 51 and I moved to Last FM and I worked there for years, like one of the first like audio streaming, like radio streaming things. But I moved back to San Francisco 2010 and had wrapped up the label by that point. And I was quite wanting to do my own sort of like programming, sort of like creative code art. I've been getting into like processing like the original sort of Java version at that point. Me and some buddies, we would get together on a Wednesday and have like a kind of hack night. We'd get some beers, get stoned, and like sort of work on a hacking project.
Hell yeah.
The first like algorithmic one, music thing I was doing. We were using like a Node.js, which was kind of new at that point. And I'd had this novel idea for using like RabbitMQ, like a messaging event queue system where we would communicate via that. So we could both have like little Node.js like sample playback things. And
Love it.
and then, yeah, kind of going
Wow.
forward, 2015, I decided I was want to learn like C, C++, and that's how I started on my kind of current software that I've been working on, Soundboard, which led me back into the live coding world, and went out to the UK 2018 for a live coding conference, which organized by Alex McLean, and that was really the inspiration for. I've seen so much community around that and so many people like just putting on their own things, building their own kind of computer systems. Tidal cycles was a big one, but there's
Mm,
also a large faction of people like just building their own systems for themselves.
yeah.
And that was 2018. When I came back to SF, I was like, why don't we have something like that here? And that's basically the sort of genesis of Algorithmic Art Assembly. That was my attempt to kind of try and bring some of that back to the States here and like set up for that first one in 2019.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't recall exactly, but I do remember, at a certain period there in 2017, 18, something like that. I mean, we were all this is maybe when the algorithm on Instagram and whatever was more favorable to us. And
Right.
not, and not using us, but it was like I started becoming aware of like, modular max adjacent artists with title cycles started popping up a lot, and I became aware of kindem, um, William Fields, and that's what led me to the algorithmic art assembly, and
Right.
consequently meeting you. Um, yeah, that was a fun period. I want to just go back for a second. You mentioned, the raves in the UK, and I am aware of that rave law that the UK government brought in about, the police had the right to shut down raves defined by,
Re-
I think, a
repetitive.
succession of repetitive
Yeah,
beats.
that's right. And then
Um,
Attacker released that specifically, like, no repetitive beats whatsoever, like 94, I think it was.
Legendary. Do you
Yeah,
recall that was that more like, was that being applied in your area of the UK
yeah,
much?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They
The
it was the whole country.
Yeah, 'cause I think that was even before like Scotland got devolution. So you just had like your one government and then down in
Right, right.
the whole. And like raves especially kicked off more in the north, like just all those kind of more working class northern
Yeah,
cities, like, whether it's like Manchester, Leeds, right up
yeah.
into Scotland, Glasgow and such.
Right, right. I mean, it never struck me as something where the people of London would, go out into the middle of the bush and like, have a rave. It certainly did seem to me be like, yeah, the North more. That's fascinating. It's kind of like when Congress here in the States tried to ban metal. Um, it's kind of like, I think it just had the counter, it actually went against them because then suddenly more people were aware of it. And,
Yeah,
it just kind of, and then it's bad. Then it makes there adds some fun risk factor, right? Which,
yeah.
when you're
That it's
young
like
is exciting.
Barbara Streisand effect. I think it's called that. I don't know why it's called that. Like presumably someone said something about Barbara Streisand, but like it by trying to ban something, you draw even more attention to it, so now everyone knows about it.
Yeah, totally. It was like Napster, right? Like everyone, suddenly the whole world knew that Napster existed. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Should have.
And I also, I'm also thinking about you using Ableton early on. Like, you know, I do recall that first 4 or 5. It's funny to think about it now, but that first 4 or 5 years of Ableton Live, it did feel very renegade to be using Ableton, because it was more of the fringe artists. It hadn't hit mainstream, electronic music yet. It wasn't being used by many pop artists, and it was this new kind of platform because it had the, session view and the arrangement view. And I think a lot of your typical DAW users were like, "What do I even do with this?" Um,
Yeah. Because
so
before that, like Cubase had been like so like just your sort of timeline sort of based.
yeah.
And then you get to this kind of loopy kind of thing, which is a very different approach to music.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do remember it just seemed like to me anyway, and but I was in Australia at this time, so it was a much smaller population. But it did seem that it was only, very experimental artists that were kind of using it at first, and then it grew into a bigger thing. Um, yeah, man. This is
Other,
this
do you
this is.
remember?
Oh,
I
go
think
ahead.
Australia audio mulch.
Yes, yes. Ross Benzina.
Yes.
Russ is a Melbourne Australian boy. You can still buy a license for it. He hasn't updated it in quite some time, but Audio Mosh, the thing that attracted me to Audio Mosh, and you can do it with Max now, but it had this, I forget what it was called. It was just basically a whole space that was, like a color sphere, and you could basically set states of your entire system, um,
Oh,
and morph around between them. And it was the first time I'd ever kind of seen that, and the way he implemented it was really good. Um, yeah, I had a fun party night after some kind of like electronic music conference in Brisbane with Samaya Langley, who's also incredible, electronic artist out of Australia, and Ross Benzina, and we partied on late into the night. He's a character, but I think he just. I don't know. I remember the last time I spoke to him. I think he's just gone off into programming something, not what I think the constant upkeep of OS is changing and this and that kind of took the fun out of it for him.
right. He's
Yeah,
someone he's someone I'd actually love to get for algorithmic art assembly. Like his writings on granular synthesis are like super detailed. Like he had a blog that was very active for a while, and like there was a
yeah,
lot of when I was implementing my own sort of granular synth engine. I'd started from the Curtis Rhodes microsound book, but there was a number of other writings, and the Rossman's Benzina blog posts were actually one of the most detailed implementations I ended up sort of following. He speaks about the sort of envelopes that you would use for your grains and everything. Very detailed.
yeah. I mean, I see here his website is still up, and his last article was January 9th, 2015. Yeah, I mean, Audio Mosh was incredible. I actually know a few artists who still they just keep a laptop that runs and they still use it. He was a real character. Um,
That's super
yeah,
cool. Yeah, I'd
I'd love to
forgotten
know
about
what
this.
he's up to now. I saw him play too a little bit around around Australia before I moved to the US, and yeah, his sets were excellent too. Like,
I don't think I've ever. Does he go by his own name for music? I don't think I've ever actually heard his music.
that is a good point. Now that I recall, I think he does play under some kind of alias, and man, I would have to dig up into the archives to remember. This was 20 years ago or so that I saw. He did play in Brisbane. Um, yeah. I see that one of the things on the first page of Google is like how to contact Ross Benzina. Uh, yeah, interesting. Night, lovely guy. But yeah, I just met him one time, partied on all night with him, and that was the last time I saw him.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
but yeah, uh, wow, this is such a you just dropped a ball on me, man. It's such a strange world. This like slightly fringe of mainstream electronic music and all of these software platforms that have like come and gone over the years. Those
One of the artists who's coming over, a guy from Scotland as well, Rory Law.
Yeah.
He used Audio Mulch before, like he used that for many years, I think, before he got into Max MSP. He's going to he's doing an installation for Algorithmic Art Assembly and a talk performance, but he has this amazing novel interface. He's like this tarot card interface to Max MSP that's going to be part of the exhibition that will be there. So that should be exceptionally cool.
Wow, that is cool. Um, Speaking of which, folks, we should talk about algorithmic art assembly. So Thorsten mentioned, that he went to the live coding conference in the UK put on by Alex McLean, and then that was the inspiration for the first Algorithmic Art Assembly, which happened in March of 2019. Is that
Yeah,
correct,
yeah,
Thor? Um,
yeah. They've all been March.
yeah, and that was something, that was one of those things where I was like, finally,
Yeah,
because there's lots of conferences and there's Sinmat and different things that happen around DSP, but this to me, I love that. I love that
I've still got
design.
these like just kick around the house like different flyers from the events and such as well.
Yeah, that was incredible. Um, Yeah, I made a point. I remember talking to Darwin Gross, and I was like, this looks really interesting. There is some Max stuff here. There's certainly a lot of Max adjacent stuff also occurring. Can I go up? Can I can I skip out of work on Friday and like head up to San Francisco? And he was like, yeah, if you write an article about it, um, you can go. And I was like, all right, I'll write an article about it. And I remember it just blew my mind. It blew my mind. There was so many, and I think for me the beauty of it was it wasn't just a concert, right? Um, so, folks, the way that Thorsten runs Algorithmic Art Assembly, it's like more of it reminds me of like Sonar or something, where there's like think tanks happening around it and there's like talks happening around it. So Thorsten has a schedule through the day of artists presenting on their practice or on an idea or on algorithmic music, and then concerts in the evening. Have I described it adequately,
Yeah,
Thor?
no, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because your write up for that first one was incredible. It was like super detailed. You'd got there for every talk and like you'd sort of like yeah, you'd give like really good descriptions for most like almost all of the good talks and everything. It was great. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
I love that comparison to Sonar. Like that like yeah, that's kind of nice. Sonar was just this kind of multimedia experience when you kind of go out there. Also helped by the fact it was Barcelona in the summertime, which was just kind of beautiful.
yeah, and I think that's changed a little bit now, but like certainly gave me that feeling for that first one. Um, I do remember it was raining, but it kind of was nice because it meant that you didn't. It kind of maybe for those who are in attendance already, it meant that you didn't really want to go anywhere else. So you kind of just stuck it out there and stayed dry. Um, but yeah, I remember it being incredible, and it was this convergence of artists who perhaps knew of each other or were adjacent from one another. Like I know I finally got to join a bunch of dots myself, like um, meeting Kevin Bednar from Portland. I got to meet William Fields, kind of yourself. Um, yeah,
Yeah, there's so, and then of course we had Mark Fell that year, which was like so legendary to have Mark as well. And it was funny when he turned up as well, because my name Thorsten Sideboard, he didn't know I was Scottish. I don't think he had any idea who I was. I had got his contact because he's from Sheffield, which is where Alex McLean is from as well, and there'd been a number of different things. Like Mark Fell did a contribution to that live coding book that Alex McLean had sort of like edited together. So I'd actually got Mark Fell's contact through Alex McLean, and he now Mark Fell has a very working class northern accent as well. That's like one of the things that informs his work, that working class experience. And then when he met me, like I think he thought I was like some crazy Norwegian or Scandinavian type guy, and then he's like, "Oh, he's from fucking Glasgow." And my good friend Kenny that you met when he was out here as
yeah,
well, he does sound for a venue which just closed in Glasgow, the CCA, the Centre for Contemporary Art. And he had actually done sound for Mark Fell, like, I don't know if it had been a year prior to that or just in the previous few months. So when he got there, he was like, "Well, I know this guy from Glasgow." And like, so Mark Fell was also like just really just happy and like comfortable being there and like just hanging out with everyone, which was kind of awesome. I remember,
yeah.
I don't know if it was Kevin or someone else was like, "Oh, Mark, do you want to come for like dinner with us?" And Mark was like, "Is Kenny going?" And it was like so nice that he had like latched on to like my best buddy that was there and such as well. As long as Kenny's going, I'll go for dinner as well.
Nice, nice. Yeah, yeah. I particularly like that. Like, that whole event, Mark was like just hanging out. He was there for some of the talks. He stuck around for like he was there for all of the concerts. Um, yeah, it
Yeah, and
was
that's
great.
cool. I think because he had mentioned actually, I think he'd specifically got it down early enough for Kingdom set because I think like Ryan, his son, had been like, "You got to go and check out Kingdom," and so he came along for that. Like, yeah, that was so good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was great. Um, Yeah, so folks, that was the first algorithmic art assembly, and then there was a second one planned for 2020, but we all know what happened there. We don't need to go over and rehash the past. We're all still dealing with it. But to Thorsten's credit, he actually stuck with the 2020 lineup. And once it was like safe and possible to bring it back, he came back with version 2 of the Algorithmic Art Assembly in March of 2022.
Wow.
And that was incredible. I mean, it's kind of one of those things. I know personally for me, like I had the pleasure of playing it. And Paul Berg is asking what happened in 2020. um, Yeah, I had the pleasure of playing that and was the most surreal experience because I think it was maybe the longest break I'd ever had from being in front of an audience, and
Right.
I remember being extremely nervous for several reasons. I mean, firstly, it was the most amount of people I had been around in like 2 years, and so there was that getting used to being around people again. And then also, like, not having played for 2 years. And I remember playing the first 5 minutes, I was like shaking. And I just remember this euphoric feeling. I've never experienced this, but during, and like hit the first kick drums and then blasting through that awesome PA at Grey Area. And I just remember this euphoric feeling where it was like, oh, I I know how to do this. Like muscle memory kicked in, and then I was just in the zone. But that whole event was beautiful. It was like this convergence of getting back to some normalcy. Sometimes some normalcy, whatever that is. But like, yeah, that was also a special event. Yeah,
I think there was a lot of like pent up, like it was almost this freedom out. Like it was the first time I think a lot of us had come out for like a big event since then. It was
yeah,
like it'd already been 2021, things had stuck. We'd got like the vaccine and things started opening up, but that early 22, it was like, all right, I think it's safe to come out now, and everyone was just like, oh, this is so good to get out. And
yeah. It was special. It was special for sure. And I think it just solidified the event. Actually, like everyone had still been thinking about talking about 2019, and we had 3 years to kind of rerun that whole 2019 event in our minds, and so finally we got to do it. And yeah, it was something else. It was special, beautiful.
and then having
And
Richard Devine headline that year was awesome as well. His set was just incredible.
yeah, yeah, I think I played uh two. Oh, I played before, not directly before. CNSD played before Richard. I played before her. She was incredible. And I
Yeah.
remember playing, and I had this massive sub bass section that I finished my set with. And I turned to my left, and behind the table, so no one in the audience could see this, Richard Devine's laying there like this, like beside me, but no one could see it, just soaking. He's like, that was the best sub bass I've ever heard. Like, he was just getting this big sub bass massage. Um, yeah, he was, that was funny. And now we're back. So, folks, Thorsten has incredibly worked hard to bring this incredible lineup together for the Algorithmic Art Assembly that is happening at the end of this month, March 26, 27, 28. I'm not going to reel off the lineup, but there is a boatload of Max users, a boatload of Max adjacent users. There's all the talks. I just posted the link. If you if you haven't, or if this is not on your radar, it should be. Um, Check it out. Thor, I have been getting asked about the schedule of events. Is there somewhere we could see that? Is that out yet?
Yeah, it's not a secret, but I wonder if it's actually um yeah, because I can actually on the website it's just like listed alphabetically.
Right.
Rather the but it is ready. I should actually get that posted someplace. Like on the Friday night headliner is going to be Carolus Coverdale. She's going to present her most recent electronic album from Where You Came. Um, So the Thursday night actually is it's almost like the OGs of Algorithmic Art Assembly. We're going to headline with Kindom and Sebastian Kamens doing live visuals. We have Nathan Ho playing that night, who's like DSP wizard kind of thing. He basically writes stuff from scratch in Super Collider. We have
Sick.
William Fields, Wolf Parkinson White, and opening that night, R. Tyler, another sort of local San Francisco guy. He's going to open with a talk leading into a performance. Um, Saturday, there's like a ton of artists during the day. Rory Law, Claire L. Evans. We have a number of talks from musicians as well. Like basically, as you'd sort of described, like talking about their system. So Nathan Ho will actually do a talk on the Saturday. We have a guy, Lee Tussman, speaking, who's he's written a system called L5. It's like it's processing P5 but done in Lua, which is Lua is
Wow.
like yeah, it's he's into sort of perma computing, this idea of like now using Lua is a language which doesn't change as often. Like I think he'd got frustrated with P5 where JavaScript versions and browser versions and such, but Lua is almost like designed to be very stable over a long time. So this
Right.
like perma computing and reusing your older materials and such.
Yeah,
He's doing
very
a
well.
workshop as well with Char Styles, who's performed before, and she's actually previously more well known for like she's done like shader workshops and like a lot of graphics, but she has this she's doing a workshop on like a fantasy IDE. Like she's been building her own IDE for like live coding and for like algorithmic arts. So she's doing lots actually. She's going to do a workshop, she's going to do a talk on her IDE, and then she's actually going to do a music performance in the evening. Um, Daniel Temkin, who is I have some props here as well. Where is
Props.
Daniel Temkin is
Nice.
had this book out which I'd seen as well, like 44 SO-Langs. So he's going to do a talk on SO-Langs. Uh he's a headline sort of speaker during the day. In the evening we have Tishrono, who's playing recently, supporting Ottecker on the most recent tour last year. Louisa May is playing again. Deli Cuvetti, who's just incredible stuff. Carolis, as I did mention on a Friday. Saturday, again, like a bunch of different artists. Chia Amasola. We have C Robo, who is one of my favorite musicians at the moment. He's down in LA. He's doing a talk during the day on his how he uses. Actually, it's not even tidal cycles now. He's moved on to Strudel, which is now the JavaScript version in the browser. The sort
Mm,
of syntax is like tidal cycles, but it's like implemented in JavaScript rather than Haskell, which I guess Haskell, getting into functional languages there is maybe slightly different. During the day, you're doing a talk which will lead into a performance. You've got this hybrid midday part where you'll do that. We have Nearer after that. And then another artist talk I'm very excited by is Carol Lostrito and Cathy Dan Zhang. More props coming up here. These are other books
nice.
by Carol Lostrito, which are just incredible stuff. So I was so excited when he actually replied to my invite saying, "Oh yeah, we'd love to come out."
Hell
He's
yeah.
on Cathy Dan Zhang. They've been doing this cloud project. Then a Saturday night we have Cody Nearer, Keith Thornton Whitman. He's actually also going to do a sort of hybrid talk into a performance as well in the evening,
Nice.
talk about his system. And then we have the C Robo, and then the headliner for the Saturday, Gabor Lazar. Um,
Nice.
but I do need to. I will probably just more do an Instagram post, or maybe we'll do it on the Grey Area website. We'll actually put up the schedule so people can see who's playing at what time.
Yeah, I just when we posted up about you coming on today, I did get a couple of questions like where can I see the schedule? Um, Yeah, so people are excited, and they're aware that it's not just performances. So yeah, folks, once Thor gets that up, I'll be sure to repost it in various channels. Yeah,
Actually, my friend, the designer for all the algorithmic art assembly stuff, he's actually putting together more for use for the actual day of that we can post on the screens, but he's putting together like a nice graphic with the lineup at the moment. Just chatting with him this morning about that. So as soon as I actually have that, I'll use that as a post and I'll get that online and on the websites and such.
yeah. The RC art on the website's so good.
Yeah, yeah, I thought that's pretty cool. And it's nice because it does evolve and it sort of changes through things. So it's
Yeah,
the first website, the design for this one was like kind of more static, but then for the second one we did have like a JavaScript kind of moving kind of thing as well, which is kind of nice. Um, do I have the reference for that one? I had a book for that guy as well, which might be another book prop. So this is actually the design that we used. This is what we were based on for the second.
that book is something else. That's so
Yeah.
good.
But this is pretty much what we stole the design for the website for that second one.
Yeah, that book is incredible. I picked it up it was weirdly in like the discount bin in some bookstore in Hawaii. And
Ah.
I was like, this book is incredible. I'm not sure why it's in the discount bin, but I'll take it. Yeah, it's very good. Folks, this is incredible. So, not only is Thor an incredible musician, his curation, and this is honestly what's really struck me with the first algorithmic art assembly that I attended, where the curation just the cohesiveness, the informative, quality of it, the performances, just it was brilliant. I was like, this guy clearly knows algorithmic music. But to call him a curator, that would be just selling Thorsten short. Thorsten, you have some stuff to show us. Do you want to explain a little bit first about your own language, your own coding system that you've been creating to make music?
Yeah. So I wanted worked in computers for years, but I kind of wanted to get like I've been doing like Perl scripts, which I'd mentioned before, but Perl scripting is like not it's not like scripting is very different from like just actually writing like a more of a program kind of thing. Like the level of complexity is very different. And after having worked with like Unix and Linux for years, I kind of wanted to go lower. I wanted to actually understand how operating systems worked, and I wanted to learn how to do C programming. And C programming, like C was invented in like 1969, 1970, alongside Unix kind of thing. And having been a Linux sysadmin for years, it's kind of steeped in all this history, especially from working at Stanford Research Institute, which is where I discovered all of this. Um, and so I mentioned when I got back to the States, I was doing like more kind of creative coding using like Node.js and such. But basically, I wanted to go lower than that. So I decided I wanted to learn like C, C++, like actually C originally first. And so I started just like doing more coding in that. And I wanted a project to learn how to go with C. Like you almost need like a end goal kind of thing rather than just learning it for the sake of it. So I started just writing like sine waves and things as well. One of the first C tutorials looked at was doing like a command line shell, which is, it's basically how you interact with the operating system. It's a shell around the operating system. Like if you open up your terminal, you're running within a shell, and that's how you interact with an operating system. So one of the first C tutorials I'd done was how to write a shell. And basically it's like a REPL, a read, evaluate, print loop kind of thing. It's like sits there, you type something in, it gets processed and it prints back the loop for it. So um I'd done that tutorial. I'd sort of started on this shell and I did called it SB shell more as sideboard shell. I'd forgotten about that. It'd been like a weekend project. And then I'd started working on like sort of C stuff and I'd written like an oscillator and you could like create like frequencies for it. But as a command line utility, it wasn't like a graphical thing where you could
Mm.
have a knob or a slider, you could adjust it. So I could write a program that would create like a sine wave at 440 kilohertz and you'd launch it. But then it's like, well, now what? Like I can control C and stop it. How can I actually interact or control these? And I had this like, oh, I could put it into my shell and then you can like launch the shell and you've had all these different commands. So that's what's evolved. I basically have this shell, sideboard shell, soundboard shell, which has five different instruments. I've got like a DX synth, which is based on like a FM synth, which is based on a DX100, the architecture. I have a subtractive synth, which is based on like a mini Moog architecture. I wrote like a granular synth engine, which is based upon Curtis Rhodes stuff.
Yep.
There's a drum synth, and then there's like sort of sample one shots. So this was the book I basically followed for like a year kind of thing. And this is where the DX100, the FM synth, and the subtractive synth kind of come from. Uh,
Nice.
and this book was legendary as well. It basically starts off, you write like like it introduces you to writing like an oscillator, then like you add in an envelope generator, so you've got like your tack and sort of release and such for it. Then it introduces you to filters, and you build it up into like a simple mini synth, and then you give it multiple voices, and then you give it like a kind of control matrix, so you can like modulate everything. It all becomes very. By the end of the book, you've got like multiple synths that you've built, and basically I wired all of them into my command line shell. Um, but can do, shall I present my screen? Do you want to, rather than
Yeah, yeah,
talking,
yeah. Let's do it.
do some of this?
Yeah, walk us through. I think folks would be very excited to see this.
Can you see the screen okay?
Yeah, Thor, just one quick question. We're getting some comments here in the about I know the algorithmic art assembly is not live streamed, but will it be documented like it was in the past and then, available to view later?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to record all of the talks. Everything will be available online afterwards. There's the Algorithmic Art Assembly YouTube channel, and all of the previous talks and performances have been there, with the exception of some of the headliners that kind of want to keep their own kind of permissions and rights for the streams. But we will be recording everything for this version as well, and it should all be online, all uploaded to the YouTube channel shortly after the event.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely, because that's one of the like not everyone can make it, and it's like just nice to be able to. You don't always catch every talk or performance as well, so it's nice to actually be able to kind of catch up with them at your own sort of leisure afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Excellent. All right. Thanks for that. All right, let's talk us look at this, folks. This is awesome.
It's kind of funny because now REPLs, like command line interfaces, have become kind of fashionable because of like Claude CLI and Gemini CLI. So they actually look kind of similar to this. I was like, hey, I've been doing this for 10 years at this point. Right, so this is a shell. It's an interactive programming environment. The Unix shell, like one of the first things is PS, like your process stats, like what's running, and the same thing here. So we have this is all your instead of the operating system, it's like a mixing desk. This is a top level, like one of the metaphors actually, as I said, I'd used with Ableton Live for years. So even without trying to, this is almost like a command line version of Ableton. Is like how I first envisioned much of this. So at the
Ah,
top here, you have
nice.
like your BPM. This loop length 3840. The basically it works on like MIDI ticks kind of thing. So no matter what your BPM is, like your one bar, like one loop is broken up by 3,840 MIDI ticks. So there's a number of things here like 3840 divided by 16 is like like 240. So you use that quite often kind of thing as like a number that kind of uses. So the actual interface itself, this is like a full programming language. So for let I zero less than 16, I guess plus 16. Let's see if I can live code there. Yeah, so like there's a
Oh,
full
cool.
programming environment here. So so cycling equals 73, false 74, true. Like there's so yeah, that's the first thing here. But what makes this different is there's like five instruments I was talking about. So there's a number of them already set up here, and this is just because of this is like my basic kind of workspace.
Yeah,
So they're kind of color coded. The sampler ones are just like one shots. You hear that? Okay, kick
yeah,
drum.
yeah.
Um, so there's like kick drums, clips, snares, and such. I have three FM synth here, these DX ones. You can kind of start looking at these. So the FM synth for like four operators. Um, this is like the overall sort of the algorithm it's using. there's some nice ASCII art here for um I'm sure you've seen like the DX100 or any of the DX7. You get the at the top of it, you get like the algorithm, so you can actually see how the operators fit together. And I'd always kind of forget how that works. So this is my like ASCII version of it. So the four operators here, one, two, three, four, an algorithm
Nice.
basically how they modulate each other or what their relationship is to the out sound.
Yep.
So algorithm zero basically means that the first operator is the one that comes out to a sound, two modulates one, three modulates two, etc. And these are just the different configurations. Um, so let's give it play a note. Let's give it a chord. Change the duration. Uh, so you can basically control all these. There are different ones, which
Very cool.
what's this one? I see. I think I've got sort of so there's like the DX ones. There's the mini synth there as well, which is live coding. This is the mini mode one, which
Oh,
has four
nice.
speakers. What it's basically controlled by the voice, which will change all these settings. It has like two LFOs here, two envelopes, which you can then like assign to anything else. Uh, so and then there's the yeah sample ones. The other big one I spent a lot of time on was the granular synth. What was actually so Unix like ls is like list your directory. So this is all the actual samples kind of thing. You can like listen, you can list all these guys. You can basically play any sample to preview.
Nice.
Granular synth one. So um, let me put that back on again. Basically start all of these things and different patterns. There's a whole lot, a bunch of built-in things. So like oh yeah, the last one to show is the synth drum itself. And the MIDI notes on this work slightly differently. Like note zero, MIDI note zero is like the bass drum, the snare drum, the claps and such. So yeah, big sort of like pick. There's a couple of different like these are like FM synth for this percussion there and there's a whole these are all at the I said it's all like you based on MIDI notes, so obviously you kind of forget which numbers are which kind of things. There's a built-in like MIDI reference, so you can kind of see which ones are which, and there's a lot of functions built into the language, so you can actually so, let's see. So all the C MIDI notes like 12, 24, 36. So notes in key, let's say 36. So this is like what notes are in the key of C. And just as a reference, uh, 36. You can kind of see things, but you can also get like the chords. So notes and chords, a C chord and a key of C, and you can print them. So there's a lot of things for like just generating your MIDI notes
Mm.
as well, and also like a lot of algorithmic stuff kind of built in. So like you can generate like a pattern here, like just with this rand array. So you could play array, bass drum, that rand array, and that'll just generate. But let's see. If I actually generate like yeah, you can just generate like sort of random arrays kind of thing, and then you can like apply that to the SP drum, and that will just map them over all the MIDI. However, like so that kind of shows off all the things that you can get going on there. But working within like just that REPL itself can get, there's certain things you can do that are quite good there. But where it gets even more interesting is like when you can actually um control via a file, because this way you can replay things back as well. A lot of the original ones I'd done, I could do performances and such with that. But let me get that to a smaller one to kind of show off something here. I came up with this idea like these computations, and it's basically based upon like how processing or Arduino works, where you've like two functions. So you've got like a setup function which kind of sets up your
Yeah,
various
yeah.
scope for it, and then a run function which kind of gets called on like for processing it's every frame, but for here it's like at the top of every loop. So you can
Right.
basically monitor a file and you can sort of live code within the file. So now that I've imported that file, I can then run these functions. And so that's basically, it's got some drum patterns here. It's got some offsets, it's
Nice.
the velocity variations, and it will change each time it gets called again because you're sort of incrementing and moving through. So you can just operate with these, but what you can then do is assign them to a process which will keep running. So um, I will assign to process one that function, and it'll kind of keep running by itself. But then you can also build them up further into like a composition. So this one is like my master composition, which kick this off for a minute. And this will basically, yeah, each one that will increment. So like it's at the first run, it will play these ones. And basically you can like build up like a whole song structure through this. And 16th iteration, it will drop some stuff out, it will bring some other things in, and kind of continue going that way. So let's keep them all running. Yeah, so that's
Lovely.
kind of thing.
Beautiful.
And I've been doing like a whole bunch of documentation for this because I'm the only person that's used this for years, and I haven't ever pushed for other people to use it. But I have actually written like a full user guide now, so I'm going to, alongside Algorithmic Art Assembly, I actually want to do a bit of a push for this. I'm going to put out like a tutorial video for it, which I've been working on. So this preparing for this talk, actually the past couple of nights I've been like trying to think about how to like do a demonstration of it. So that is going to tie into, I've been documenting it in the user guide. I'm going to put together a video. I can take my time a bit more and actually have a walkthrough for this, and I'll post it up on the Algorithmic Art Assembly channel and such as well, and see if anyone else wants to pick up on using it. I'm actually scared of one thing because I've seen other people do this as well. I think like Alex McLean with Tidal Cycles, like once you see other people like making even better music than you're doing with your own tool, there's a certain, hey, how do you do that with my tool? Like, how come I never thought to do that with it? So I'm looking
Yeah,
forward
yeah,
to seeing
yeah.
some other people make some good music with this as well.
Yeah, there is that thing I did like, and I've experienced this with Max too. Like, I make a Max patch and I put it out there, put it on my website, and then someone makes something with it, and I'm like, shit, I never thought to do that. Yeah, and it can be the simplest thing, but for whatever reason, you're so focused on building it this one way that you don't think of this slightly alternative way to actually use the thing. And yeah, I don't know. I think, we're humans, so we get in these little habitual kind of, you know, uh, tangents and whatever. And then someone will just look at it and totally go, well, what if I just turn this? And you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Um, it's cool though. I really love that. I really love that. I'm always pleasantly surprised. Um,
Yeah. I'm kind of excited at the idea of that. That'll
Yeah,
be
I
cool.
think that's going to be really cool. I think it will also, inspire possible evolution of it as well. And yeah, very
Yeah,
cool.
and one is as a topic of conversation, it's a bit AI these days. Like I've been using Claude, and I know there's so many people that are so anti AI, but for doing my documentation and such, like Claude has been amazing. There's been like, it's like, can you write me a user, like read my all this code I've written and like can I write me a user guide for such as well? And like some of the FX, it's like standardized things. Like I've got it to um especially for all the granular synth stuff, you're doing basically a lot of bookkeeping. It's all like your index and operations and like your modular wrapping and such. So I'll have like Claude, like, can you check my math on this? Is this all correct and such? And there's been like bugs found and such as well. But
Oh,
it's
wow.
I found that like using like Claude AI, I feel much more like it's like Tony Stark with Jarvis. Like you're kind of like, can you have a look at this part for me and like fix this or write this for me as well? But that's a bit of a controversial attitude these days as well, I feel like.
It is, it is. But I think, I think maybe it's surprising how many people are actually using it, but not saying anything about it, also, because
Uh,
it's like, it's become taboo and it may be frowned upon, but um, I've been, I don't know, not shocked, but surprised at who and at what level it is being used. And yes, there's some ethical issues there with, the environmental aspect and the cooling and the water usage. Um,
and even just like the sort of harvesting of like artistic data from other places and such as well, or whether it's like
yeah.
now
And,
GitHub or everyone's code and using all that to like feed it kind of thing. Like
I,
certainly I'm very aware of all those issues and such as well. Like yeah, it's complicated.
it's also not going to go away.
And it
Which is
isn't
not
more
to
like
say it's correct or right, but it's definitely not going away.
yeah, yeah. And like from a couple of years ago and it was like just hallucinating stuff, like making up APIs that don't exist and such. But I think about a year ago I had I was trying to look at a repitching algorithm. Like my initial implementation of repitching is just basically like linear interpolation. You'd either speed up or like slow down your reading of an array. And I was actually
Yeah.
looking at a more um pleasant, well, not even pleasant sounding, but I was aware that there was better ways of like doing repitching kind of thing. Like one thing I'd come across was like a was it windowed sync interpolation. You basically have to look at you do like an FFT on like the surrounding window of what you're trying to like repitch, and it kind of takes your frequencies and like kind of calculates and such. Um, and I think I tried to implement it by myself, and it was kind of working, but not so well. And this was about a year and a half ago, and I'd asked Gemini to like sort of try and give me an implementation for it, and it gave me like working code almost straight away. And it was the first time I was like, whoa, this actually works pretty well. And since then, it's I moved over to Claude, and sometimes like it just blows me away, like what it can actually, the code it can give you, kind of things, which completely works very well these days.
Mm, no, I think it's kind of shocking actually. Someone was asking what the book was. It's the Analog Rhythms book.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Uh,
analog algorithm
so
by
good.
yeah, what
I,
is it? Christopher Grunberger.
yeah, I just look at that book. I literally will just. I have it on the. I like to keep it on the coffee table, and I'll just rip it open and look at a couple of pages, and it's kind of, I don't know, maybe my brain is wired differently. No, it definitely is. But like, like one or two pages while I'm sipping my coffee, and it just sparks, just makes things spark. It's very
Yeah,
cool. Um, you don't even need to read any of the text or anything. It just, yeah, it's awesome. Um, you can find it on various places for sale. Yeah, it seems to be in stock in many places right now, so that's good. Yeah. Um, Thor, this is incredible. I'm in awe of everything that you do, and also aspire to stick at it myself. into the future. You've put down a few decades now, and that's, of consistent, artistry. It's incredible. Um, Thank you for coming to hang out. I mean,
Yeah,
folks,
yeah.
one last thing I'll mention though, because everyone should be aware of this. It's probably it is my favorite podcast. Thorsten keeps a very monthly podcast, pretty, consistently putting out some pretty cool stuff of Bandcamp, random get Bandcamp finds, regular, old school, guys that have been in the algorithmic sphere for a long time. Thorsten has a podcast, the High Point Low Life Radio Show, which is also your label, right, Thor?
It was a label for years, and it's
Yeah.
now it kind of continued as a radio show, and now it's just like the kind of promoter for Algorithmic Art Assembly and such as well.
But I love this. It's almost not almost every podcast you do, I find some artist or something, or there's a release I didn't know, because it's so easy to miss artists, release stuff now because of saturation online. But like, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, they've got an album, excellent, and I've several times I've like have to skip back to catch the name so I can go and grab it. Um,
Sorry about that. My Scottish pronunciation
oh,
quite often mangles names as well, which is why there's always like a track listing there. Quite
no,
often I'm
no,
like,
no.
that name.
I mean, I think Max users are used to me mangling names as well in my Australian accent, but uh, but I think it is also like obscure aliases, right? Like you never know exactly how to like Kingdom, right? Kingdom. Like I say, I think I have three different ways of saying it, depending on what time of the day it is. Uh, but it's I like how you run your podcast because there is some where maybe they're more like a radio show. They do a lot of talking, which can work. But I'm kind of like, for me, I like to lock in, and your brief intros are actually really helpful. Um, but you kind of let the music do its thing, which I appreciate.
Yeah, like it's still nice, I think, to have like some sort of like enthusiastic voice in between rather than just for the music, like a music mix. So there's some, quite often I might have some kind of chat or backstory on some of the artists or like the releases or like, yeah, so there's sometimes like little bits of leather in between and such.
No, I love it. I think for me, you get it just right. And I also have that nice warm feeling of being like, I feel like I'm hanging out with you for
Right,
45
yeah.
minutes or so, right? Like I feel that like familiar, friendly voice, Um,
Yeah.
but you absolutely should check out Thorsten's podcast. It's excellent. It's very informative. If you're in this sphere, often includes a lot of Max users who you probably are aware of, and also Max adjacent. Um, yeah, great way to expand your listening lists.
It's that you bring up the Max users, but it's interesting because there's little kind of groups. There's like super collider users, there's like the Max users, there's the tidal cycle and strudel and such, and like it's
Yeah.
all aesthetically similar kind of thing. It's just like different tools. Like people have their own communities and such with it, which is kind of nice. And I kind of love that for algorithmic art assembly. You've got like different super collider users or like a DSL on top of super collider or whichever
Yeah.
works. But it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I haven't made things in Max that have been taken from slash inspired by either tidal cycles or super collider. I mean, I think these things inform one another. And I know Bill William Fields, I mean, he's asked me many questions about Max over the years, like what's this, why does this do this? And found it interesting. Kingdom as well, like I think he's dabbled and experimented with Max as well. Yeah, I think there is that you catch that odd staunch person who's like, I'm only this thing and that's it. But and I can respect that. I think sometimes you, as an artist, you have to set some
More
boundaries.
props, but these are my favorite books as well. Like I've used so much of the what I've read in here. I've like, oh, I could do that in my program, so it's given me like another idea for implementing something else within Soundboard.
Yeah, yeah. I saw Gregory in the chat here. Actually, he's been hanging out.
Nice,
Um,
nice. Yeah, both of them, like both of those books are so good.
And you know, that's something I think about often, right? Like we actually have like there's a whole Max community of people who have an affinity for Max and appreciation and a respect, but maybe don't even use Max themselves, right? Like big, you know, like it's Max adjacent or something. They're Max adjacent. Like I think that maybe even some of them are on our newsletter. And I think that's fascinating. It's like, you know, I'm sure it happens. I know, well, some of it happens because of Max for Live, right? Because people use Max for Live whilst never actually patching anything themselves, which is completely fine, you know. And I think the other thing with Tidal Cycle, Super Collider, you know, other languages too, you know, borrow, beg, steal, influence. Yeah. Awesome, mate. Folks, we are going to wrap it up here. If you do have any questions for Thorsten, we've got another minute or two. If you drop them in the chat, I can ask him and we can get an answer in the moment. But otherwise, if you're in San Francisco, oh, hey, we got another cat. Who's this? Who's
This
this?
is Scotty,
Hey,
Scottish name for a small thing.
kitty.
She's been on the bed. There's another one chilling back there by the windowsill as well.
Ah,
Yeah,
nice. They're bringing the vibes.
yeah,
Getting the
yeah.
sun, getting the sun, recharging. Folks, if the algorithmic art assembly is not on your radar, it should be. If you don't live in San Francisco, maybe you can find a cheap flight in. Um, these weekends, I've had the pleasure of attending all of them this far, and I leave those events just feeling so inspired and full and excited to come home and work on my own stuff beyond just being entertained and the likes in the moment, but like the other thing, and Thorsten and I talked about this prior to the stream starting, is this it's like this convergence of community as well, which not just the folks who are performing and presenting, but there's several notable figures within within our sphere of algorithmic music and like computer music will most likely be in attendance, and everyone's chatting, hanging. It's a beautiful time.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's coming soon now as well. 2 weeks time.
2 weeks time, folks. So that's the last weekend. Adjacent events happening around that. There is a show in Los Angeles on the Monday night, which actually includes several folks from the Algorithmic Art Assembly, including Gabor Lazor. He's headlining on Saturday night at the Algorithmic Art Assembly in San Francisco, and then he's headlining on Monday night in Los Angeles. That's actually his first time ever coming to LA. And also Keith Fullerton Whitman, who will be at Algorithmic Art Assembly, is also playing in LA on Monday, March 30th. And Keith is going to be right here next week. So that's going to be another fun one. Keith Fullerton Whitman, longtime computer music, algorithmic artist, Max user. Yeah, always a fun one.
Yeah.
If you want to pregame it, there's actually an excellent talk on the Cycling 74 YouTube channel from the Cycling 74 Expo in April of 2019. Keith, yeah, it's a great chat. Keith gave a 1 hour presentation on his whole playthroughs concept that he's been, working using for decades now.
I'm excited to meet and hang out with Keith. When we've been emailing back and forth quite a lot, and I was like, "Did you ever happen to stay with Leafcutter John in London? Because I'm pretty sure I seen him when I was there." And he's like, "Yeah, I used to stay there all the time." So it's funny that John would always have like other artists like crashing on our couch. So I never actually got to meet Keith when he was like staying at my place in London. But it seems like he also knew a whole bunch of other people I know from London. There was a label called Adidat, which was Bjorn and Angus, and he was like buddies with them, and like I was super close with those guys. So it's funny how much our worlds overlap, but we never actually hung out or met each other.
That's
And we're both
funny.
around the same age now with like kids and that as well. So I'm looking forward to when he turns up next week and we can actually hang out in person. So I've been dealing with
Yeah,
that.
the funny thing is, as I've gotten older and obviously being around this world, in this sound world longer, is I'm surprised that, we know there's 8 billion people or whatever in the world, and but like once you get it down and narrow it down, it's like, man, we are so like node based and
Yeah.
interconnected, like, and there'll be a connection without us even knowing about it, sometimes for years. um it's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, that's cool.
Nice, folks. Well, let me just check here. Any questions? Must have been recent. Paul Burke is saying, love seeing the SoCal and NorCal unity. Must have been a recent armistice. I mean, you really have Thorsten to thank for the LA stuff happening, because those guys were wanting to play a bit more on the West Coast, and he was able to. And between myself and Thor, we were able to make it happen. So those guys are coming down to LA afterwards. Um, yeah. All right, folks. We're going to wrap it up. We'll be back next week. Keep your eye out for the stream link. We'll have Keith Fullerton Whitman from New York, world class experimental computer music artist. Thorsten, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. You.
Yeah, super nice to have a chat on that as well. Looking forward to Keith Thornton Whitman's next week as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for having us on and looking forward to seeing you here in a few weeks.
Yeah, of course. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And folks, just stay tuned. Thor's probably going to have that schedule should be available soon, but I'll be sure to post it up in our Discord for those who are interested, or you can just keep an eye on the website. All right,
Cool.
folks, have a good one. See you next week. Bye.
Thanks so much.
All right, man. Good stuff.